In July, there is a snake somewhere in your yard. Most homeowners do not know it. The ones who find out the hard way. A grandchild reaches behind a foundation pot. A dog noses under the back deck. A woman clearing storm-knocked branches winds up in the emergency room with copperhead venom and a $4,000 bill. Each call brings the same question: how do I remove this snake? After 40 years in the trial garden, the right question almost nobody asks. Not how to get rid of the one you just found, how to make the yard one snakes never want to enter. There are 9 old tricks, the kind your grandmother knew before the magazines told us to plant English ivy on the foundation. The trick nobody talks about is at number 3. The one that does most of the actual work is number 5. Number 9. The mothballs your neighbor keeps scattering around her shed and the federal law she is breaking without knowing it. I want to start at the bottom of the list with the snake repellent that does not work, because almost every American gardener over 50 was told it does. Mothballs, the little white spheres of naphthalene that get scattered into mulch, under decks, around chicken coops, along foundations, with the firm belief that snakes hate the smell and will leave. There are 2 problems. The first is that mothballs do not work on snakes. Snakes do not smell the way a dog smells. They taste the air with their tongue, flick, flick, and the sensor they use only picks up the heavy chemistry that sits low to the ground. Mothballs evaporate upward as a light vapor that drifts past a snake's nose entirely. Texas A&M Extension and the University of Florida have both stated this explicitly. The second problem is that scattering mothballs outdoors is a federal offense. The label says indoor use only, by law. Spreading them in your yard violates the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, and Florida specifically writes $10,000 fines for outdoor use as wildlife repellent. A neighbor of mine ran a perimeter of mothballs around her chicken coop every spring for years. I think it was from around 2010 through 2016, give or take a season. She lost 2 layers to a black rat snake the summer she finally stopped. The coop had 2 unsealed gaps under the roosting bar that no amount of naphthalene was ever going to address, and the rats living in the spilled feed had been telling the snake exactly where to go for 6 years. The fix was a roll of 1/4-inch hardware cloth and 20 minutes with tin snips. If you have a friend who still scatters mothballs, tell her gently. She is poisoning her own soil and breaking federal law to fight a snake that does not even smell the chemical. Number 8. The bird feeder you hung off the back porch in 1993 and never moved. Almost every American backyard has one. Tube feeder full of sunflower seed, 6 feet from the kitchen window, where the cardinals and the chickadees can be watched from the breakfast table. The cardinals and chickadees come. They also miss. 40% of the seed they take ends up on the ground. The ground accumulates a permanent seed bank under the feeder. The seed bank attracts mice. The mice attract more mice. Within 2 summers, you have a small rodent colony living in the foundation plantings and the mulch around the feeder, and then the snake arrives. Snakes are not interested in birds, and they are not interested in bird seed. They are interested in mice. A rat snake will follow a mouse trail right to the foundation of your house, set up residence in the mulch and the dense ground cover around the feeder, and do exactly what evolution designed it to do. The fix is one of the simplest on the list and one of the hardest to do because it feels like you are punishing the birds. Move the feeder 30 feet from the foundation, minimum, 50 feet if your yard allows it. Put it in the open where you can still see it from the kitchen, but where the seeds spill, the rodents that follow, and the snakes that follow them are all happening 50 feet from your back door instead of 6. Sweep up the seed bank you already created using a broom or a leaf blower once a week through summer around the new feeder location. The food chain breaks at the bottom. Quick check in the comments. Have you ever found a snake in your yard? Yes or no, where it was, and what state you are gardening in. I am building a map across the country of where this matters most, and the answers from the first 1,000 comments tell me where to focus next season. Number 7, 3 inches. That is the height your turf grass should not be allowed to exceed in July, August, or September if you do not want snakes moving through it. Anything taller becomes a snake highway. The plant cover hides the snake from hawks above. The temperature at the soil line is regulated. The humidity is right, and the snake can move at speed across an entire yard without ever being visible to you or to your dog. Most American homeowners mow at 3.5 to 4 inches in summer because that is the standard recommendation for grass health in heat. That recommendation is correct for the grass and wrong for the snake. If your yard borders a wooded area, a creek, a brush pile on the neighbor's lot, or any other reservoir of wildlife, drop the mower deck to 2.5 inches through the snake season. The grass takes a slight stress hit. You take a substantial safety win. The other thing the long grass does, and this is the part nobody mentions, is hide the rodent runs. Voles, field mice, and shrews tunnel just under the surface in tall grass, and you cannot see the tunnels until the grass is short. Cut low, look for the tunnels, and you have just been told exactly where the snakes will hunt. The lawn edge zone matters too. The 18-inch strip between your mulched beds and the turf is where most snake encounters happen, because that is where 2 different habitats meet. Keep that strip cleaner than the rest. No matted leaves, no fallen branches, no spillover mulch creep from the bed onto the grass. Number 6, the English ivy on your foundation that you planted in 1996, because the magazine said it would be elegant, or the periwinkle, or the creeping jenny, or the pachysandra at 4 inches deep across the entire shaded side of the house. Whatever dense, evergreen, climbing, or matting ground cover you put in 20 or 30 years ago and have not seriously rethought since. Snakes love it. Every one of these plants creates exactly the conditions a snake wants. Humid, dark, ventilated underneath, full of insects and amphibians to eat, and impossible for a predator above to penetrate. A 2,000 square foot bed of English ivy along a brick foundation is, from a snake's perspective, a 5-star resort. Worse, those same ground covers grow up into the lower branches of the foundation shrubs above them. The snake gets a vertical corridor straight up the side of the house to the soffit, the gutter, and in the worst cases, the attic vent. The gardener who has been fighting house mice for years has been growing the mouse's highway by hand. What to do instead? The aggressive ground covers come out. Cardboard them, smother for 2 seasons, replant with low-growing native ground covers that stay open at the soil. Wild ginger, foam flower, woodland phlox, Allegheny spurge. They keep the bed alive, they feed pollinators, they do not create the dense, humid cave system, and they let your dog walk through the bed without disappearing. I pulled the English ivy off the north foundation of my own house somewhere around 2014, if I am remembering right. It had been there 20 years, climbed 8 feet up the brick, lifted the mortar in 2 places, and was the home of more spiders and centipedes than I want to remember. The first summer after removal was the first summer in 20 years I did not find a snake skin under the cellar window. The trade was real. The bed is now a quiet drift of foam flower and Christmas fern. Nothing climbs the brick anymore. My grandmother never planted English ivy along her foundation. She thought it looked like a hospital. She planted what she called good ground, native low things that stayed in their lane. She had been watching her own grandparents lose chickens to snakes for 40 years before the magazines told the rest of us ivy was elegant. Quick word before number 5. There is more practical perennial garden design than fits in any one video. I gathered 40 years of it into a book at henrysgardensecrets.com. I will not bring it up again. Now to number 5, the one that matters most on this entire list, and the one almost every American gardener gets wrong. Snakes do not come to your yard for the plants. Snakes do not come to your yard to scare you. Snakes come because there is food in it. Period. Almost every snake you will ever see in an American backyard is following a rodent. The rodent is following grain, fallen fruit, fallen seed, accessible compost, pet food left outside, or the unsealed bag of birdseed in the garage that the mice have been raiding for 2 summers. The snake is the last link in a chain you started without knowing. Solve the rodent problem and the snake problem solves itself. There is no other action on this list that comes close. You can plant every repellent plant in the catalog and seal every crack in the foundation, and if you have a rodent colony in the mulch, the snake will still come. Where the rodents come from in a typical suburban yard: fallen fruit, open compost piles, pet food left on the porch, spilled birdseed, the garage corner where a bag of dog food sits with the top folded over instead of in a sealed metal bin. Pick the fruit up every other day. Switch to an enclosed compost bin. Feed pets indoors. Store grain and birdseed in metal trash cans with tight lids, the same kind your grandparents used in the barn, and for the same reason. A homeowner I know fought a copperhead in her perennial border for 3 summers in a row. She tried mothballs, she tried sulfur, she tried planting marigolds around the whole thing. None of it worked. The 4th summer, she emptied out her garage corner, sealed the dog food in a steel bin, and the copperhead stopped coming because the rats stopped coming. The snake was never the problem. The garage corner was. A 2nd story, harder. A family dog named Charlie in California last summer, bitten by a rattlesnake in her own backyard, chasing a vole through ornamental grass. Liver damage, anti-venom in the emergency animal hospital, 3 days in ICU, $15,000 in veterinary bills. The rattlesnake had been living in the back corner of the yard for 2 seasons because the rodent colony in the spilled birdseed under the back deck had been there for 4. Nobody in the household had ever seen the snake until the dog flushed it. The vole was the entire chain. Nobody had to die for it to break. Illinois Extension in Texas. A&M both write it bluntly. Habitat is everything. Strip the rodent food, the rodents leave, the snakes leave, and you do not have to do anything else on this list to fix 90% of the problem. This is the one. Number 4. Your foundation shrubs are touching the ground and the wall at the same time, and that is the architecture of a snake hotel. The shrubs that came with the house in the 1980s, yew, juniper, boxwood, and dwarf burning bush, were almost always planted 4 to 6 feet apart, watered for 2 years, and then left alone. By 2026, those shrubs are 12 to 15 years past their original prune line. The lower branches sweep the ground. The interior of each shrub is hollow, dark, leaf-littered, and connected to the next shrub by an unbroken canopy. From the side of the house, a snake can move 40 feet along the foundation without ever exposing itself to the sky. Worse, the same shrubs are now leaning against the siding, the brick, the soffit. The snake that uses the foundation as a hunting ground has a vertical bridge to the 2nd story for free. The fix is mechanical and 1 Saturday's work. Every foundation shrub gets its lower branches pruned 12 inches off the ground. Every shrub gets pulled back 24 inches from the wall of the house. The hollow interiors get cleared of leaf litter. The connections between adjacent shrubs get broken by pruning at least 18 inches of clear daylight between them. The shrubs look slightly less full for 1 season. Then they refill. The snake hotel is gone. The rodents that used to live there are gone. The dampness against the foundation that was rotting your siding is gone. And the airflow that protects the house from termites and from carpenter ants is back. I did this to the row of yews along the south side of my own house sometime around 2017, give or take a year, after I found a hognose snake curled in the leaf litter underneath the 3rd one from the corner. The pruning took half a Saturday. The shrubs grew back fuller within 2 seasons. The hognose snake never came back. Hit subscribe. Fresh notes from the trial garden. mostly perennials. Sometimes the work that keeps a yard safe enough to walk through barefoot. Now the part that takes actual work. Most of what we have covered so far is what every extension service agrees on. The next three are the difference between a garden that occasionally has a snake passing through and a garden where you can walk barefoot at 6 in the morning without thinking about it. Number 3, the 1/4-inch crack along your foundation that the snake has been using as a front door for 10 years. This is the recommendation Texas A&M Extension leads with, and almost no homeowner ever does. Snakes do not chew. Snakes do not dig. Snakes find existing gaps in the foundation of your house, under your back step, where the utility line enters the basement, where the dryer vent meets the siding, where the front porch concrete pulled away from the wall by a 1/4 inch. Anything bigger than a pencil is a door. Anything bigger than a thumb is a welcome mat. Walk the entire perimeter of your house with a flashlight on a cool morning. Look for daylight behind the boxwood you just pruned, at the corners where the porch meets the wall, at the dryer vent, the cellar window frames, the gap under the back door threshold. Make a list. Then close every gap. Steel wool stuffed into the gap, followed by exterior caulk or expanding foam over the steel wool. Snakes cannot push through steel wool, and neither can the mice that brought the snake in the first place. Hardware cloth, the 1/4-inch metal mesh, gets cut and screwed over any vent or weep hole bigger than a thumb. The whole job takes one Saturday with a caulk gun and $40 of materials. The same gardener who has been fighting snakes in the yard for 15 years discovers 2 things in the same afternoon. The snakes have been getting into the basement. The basement is where they have been overwintering. Seal the cracks, and the next spring is the first quiet spring in 15 years. A homeowner in central Ohio I knew of opened her basement door one March morning to a tangle of 4 black rat snakes coiled around the base of the water heater. They had been overwintering down there for at least 3 winters, coming in through a 4-inch gap where the dryer vent met the foundation block. The cleanup was a full day with a wildlife removal service and $400 she did not expect to spend that month. The 4-inch gap was sealed with steel wool, concrete patch, and a stainless cover by sunset. No snake has been in that basement since. This single action, boring, mechanical, does more to keep snakes out of the part of your yard you actually live in than every plant repellent ever invented. Number 2, the brush pile, the wood pile, the unstacked stones from the wall, project of 2015, and the old plywood leaning against the back of the shed. Texas A&M Extension is the polite version of this. Habitat is everything. The blunt version is, every snake in your area is right now looking for a place exactly like the corner of your yard where the brush from the spring storm has been piling up since April. Dry, dark, ventilated, full of mice and insects, undisturbed by anything bigger than the squirrel that lives in it. From a snake's perspective, you have built it a perfect den and labeled the door. The fix is a Saturday, a truck, and a willingness to throw away things you have been telling yourself you might still need. The brush pile leaves the property. The wood pile gets stacked on a rack 18 inches off the ground so animals cannot nest under it. The unstacked stones and the old plywood, gone. If it has been leaning against a wall or piled in a corner for more than one season, it is now snake habitat, regardless of what you originally meant it to be. A homeowner in Santa Monica I read about cleaned out a brush pile in her own backyard last summer. She was bitten on the wrist by the rattlesnake that had been living in it for 2 years. 13-day hospital stay, $5,300 in medical bills. She did not know the snake was there until she put her hand into the pile. Wear leather gloves and tall boots. Pull pieces off the top with a rake, never your hands, and work at noon when the snake is least active. Do not let the cleared yard refill. Anything you do not actually need, leaves. Before number 1, one favor. If any of these first 8 made you say, "I had no idea," tap the like button right now. That is how the algorithm hands this video to the next gardener who needs it before her own yard tells her the hard way. Number 1, the plant snakes actually cannot stand, and the truth about which of them work. I will be honest, I went back and forth on whether plants or rodent control belonged at number 1. Rodent control does more of the actual work. Plants do less of the work, but reach more gardens. Because every senior gardener in this country trusts what her grandmother planted more than she trusts any extension service. So plants is at number 1 for the reason that matters. It is the one that actually gets done. The catalog promise on the snake repellent plant tag is mostly folklore. Texas A&M, Illinois Extension, Florida IFAS, and the University of Georgia all say it directly. No plant chemically repels snakes the way the marketing suggests. Marigold, wormwood, the houseplant sold under the name snake plant, are pleasant garden plants. Some of them are rodent deterrents, but not a chemical force field that turns snakes away. The exception your grandmother knew about, society garlic, the ornamental purple-flowered cousin of the kitchen garlic. The sulfur compounds in the leaves are the strongest plant-based irritant I have seen documented anecdotally on this continent. A border of society garlic along the foundation of the house and around the foundation shrub line does what no marigold ever did. Pretty plant, strong onion scent, real folk traction. Plant at 12 inches on center, 2 rows deep along the foundation line. By the second summer, it forms a continuous low, purple-flowered ribbon that smells distinctly of onion when brushed. The second exception, cedar. Cedar mulch around the foundation beds, cedar shrubs on the property line, cedar oil in the corners where snakes congregate. Cedarwood oil is one of the few substances with peer-reviewed USDA evidence as a snake irritant. Replace your brown-dyed hardwood mulch with natural cedar in the foundation beds. The bed looks the same to you. The bed reads differently to a snake. Plant society garlic. Use cedar mulch. Tell the grandmother story about marigolds the way your grandmother told it, as tradition, not as a force field. 9 old garden tricks for keeping snakes out of an American yard. The first 3 are universal facts the extension services have known for decades. The next 3 are the work nobody volunteers to do: pruning, sealing, clearing. And the last 3 are the ones that actually change the math on whether your yard is hospitable or hostile. Snakes are not the problem. Habitat is the problem.